Hello everybody and welcome to the KC Sportsman Series here at Texas. We had an interesting race in the trucks. They were able to get by with one pit stop for that race. However, they cut it real close. Most drivers running on fumes by the end of it. However, this race could be different. It might not be as we get into our qualifying. The 83 of Jay Jefferson sitting on pole after that qualifying effort. A really good lap by that 83 machine as we get the green flag here for your qualifying race. Jay Jefferson with a decent pull off the line there, and Jacob Raytu is outside. A lot of these drivers who are in this race were either caught up in wrecks or just were slow at the rest of the race or didn't even make the race at Texas World at all. So a lot of these guys are hoping to get a decent run here. Jennifer Power was involved in that first incident. Same with the 15 of Aaron Reese. Meanwhile, Jay Jefferson pulling out to a decent lead here, the rookie driver for driving for Derek Hamill, and that is a pretty decent run that he is having right now. Meanwhile, we go to the halfway point, about lap 8 or 9, and Gerard Aron, as the field spreads out, he is currently sitting in the 10th position, RA Racing. I believe Aron is the only driver who was below the cut line, so he will be the only one in that group to actually have to qualify. However, he's doing a decent job of holding off the 79 of Carly Atkinson. Carly Atkinson, the driver who is currently outside of the top 10 as we go towards the end of the race here. And Jacob Ray crossing the line for the white flag. He took the lead fairly early on from Jay Jefferson. However, Jefferson has been able to keep himself inside the top 10, but Ray has been able to pull out to a fairly decent lead. Behind him, he's got Aaron Reese and Dennis Coetzee. Coetzee has had a pretty decent practices and qualified for this race fairly decently. So this will probably give him at least a little bit of a idea of where he finishes. Third for Coetzee as we continue to watch the rest of the field go over the line. And this would be the battle for 10th position. Carly Atkinson was able to get up to the 10th spot. There you see her battling with Andre Oliveira as well as Sam Verbeek. You can also see the 59 of, I believe, Jason Haynes, who is driving for Fitzwater Australia Racing. However, the 31 of Sam Verbeek taking that inside lane away from Carly Atkinson on the final lap. He was in the top 10 before this, but he ended up falling out a few laps before they got the white flag. However, he will take the top 10 position. Carly Atkinson will end up finishing one spot out of the top 10. And here are your results for that qualifying race. Jacob Ray, Aaron Reese, Dennis Coetzee in 3rd, Annalie Whitmer 4th, 5th Jennifer Power, 6th Jay Jefferson, 7th Gerard Aron, 8th Jason Haynes, 9th Andre Oliveira, and 10th will be the last car transferring is Sam Verbeek. The drivers who will not be making this race: Carly Atkinson, Xavier Carlson, another Fitzwater Australia Racing car, Donnie Johnson, Andrea Martinez in the 72. Disappointing run for that team as she was doing really well at Texas World. Diego Yepes, Alan Eberhard, another disappointing qualifying effort for that team. Joey Hamilton, TJ Hanley, Don Johnson, and Chris Sotomayor will all not make the field. And this will lead us into your starting lineups. Gerard Aron and Marshawn Anderson taking the front row, and a good qualifying lap by Gerard Aron coming out of that qualifying race. Matthew Axe and Lucas Tran of DW Motorsports in the 2nd row. 3rd row inside is Haruma Kakana for Rogers Racing, and Ricky Dixon in the number 01. Eric Monaco in the 4th row inside, and to his outside is the 86 of Martin Grayson. Annalie Whitmer 5th row inside, and to her outside is the 29 of James Austin, the race winner from Texas World. Kenny Washington and David Wilson make up row number 6. Row number 7, Andrew Gorman, Norm Mantiel. Row number 8, Dave Witten, Nicholas Samudio. Row 9, Ernest Crispin, Aaron Reese, and row number 10 was I did not see who that was. I could not catch who that was, but one of them was the Rogers Racing car, I believe. Nicholas Wade. Roger Ray, Mitchell Henderson, row 11. Row 12, Jacob Ray and Greg Shivers. Row 13, Jennifer Power, Jason Haynes. 14th row, Sean Arden, Austin Jakes. 15th row, Dennis Coetzee, Sam Verbeek. 16th row, Virgil Arvin Alonso and Andre Oliveira. Trace Howard, Jay Jefferson, 17th row. And on the final row, Willis Lewis in the 12 and Carter Friesen in the 85. So that will do it here as we will get ready to run here at Texas Motor Speedway for the KC Sportsman Series, as Gerard Aron will take them down to the green flag this time coming to the green flag, and there it is. Green flag is out. We are racing. Gerard Aron with a pretty decent jump. Matthew Axe as well right behind him, as that inside line has gotten a big jump on that start. But now Matthew Axe looking to try and take that lead away from Gerard Aron before he can even lead the lap. As Matthew Axe looks to his inside, and he will clear him coming out of turn 4. He's got the 23 of Haruma Kakana right behind him. Kakana driving that Rogers Racing Toyota. The only Japanese driver in the field as well. Has been a pretty decent veteran up until this point. However, Matthew Axe leading the field around, and then you can see Eric Monaco, a pretty decent name in this series as well. Rookie year in the Pennzoil Pro Series, and was a pretty big factor in the Copperhead Amateur Series last year as we go to lap 5, and he has already made his way up to 2nd place and is looking for the lead. Mali Motorsports dropped out of the ASCA entirely and now is focusing all of their equipment on the MSCA. As you can see, they have really picked up the pace here and are racing for the lead right now in that Honda Civic of Eric Monaco. And Monaco, again, he was a pretty big threat for the championship last year, driving for Red Stallion Racing in the number 99 car, I believe, taking the reins over from Jack Porkins. And he had a pretty decent season, wasn't able to snag himself a championship. However, Mali Motorsports currently running fairly decently right now, with Eric Monaco holding the lead. Martin Grayson not going to be able to get by Matthew Axe as they head back down the back stretch into turn 3 here on lap number 7. Another driver to note, this is a Pennzoil Pro Series veteran. This is the number 7 car of Nicholas Samudio. He's running his own operation. He does have a CAS program. However, he is mainly just doing this to try and give himself some seat time. I guess you could consider this some seat time for the Copperhead Amateur Series. But he has been running he would be running a pretty decent season. He was locked into the race, however, is not doing too well. He's in the back half of the field, I believe in 28th position right now behind Willis Lewis. And he's really trying to figure out the car more or less. Running this as his own equipment. This is, I believe, I think this is close to Avalon Racing. I believe that is the team that he runs in the Copperhead Amateur Series. Runs for Old Spice Racing in the Pennzoil Pro Series, and is not really showing a whole lot of speed, at least here at Texas right now. However, that could change coming in closer towards the end of the race, as they will have time to work on these cars at about the halfway point. About lap 30 was where the trucks pitted, and these cars are fairly similar in power and aero. However, not completely the same, as there have been drivers who did say that they have actually used more fuel than the trucks. More specifically, Mitchell Henderson, he said that these cars use actually a little bit more fuel than the trucks do, so that could be a factor coming in later on in the race. However, Matthew Axe still holding that lead, or has taken the lead away from Eric Monaco, who has started to fall back a little bit. Not too far back in the field, but has started to fall off a little bit. Probably pushed the car a little bit too hard at the beginning of the run, and is now falling back a little bit. A little bit of a rookie mistake, if you could consider it that. However, Axe and Grayson, pretty big veterans, and they know how to keep their equipment running pretty much the entire run. So these guys are some of the Martin Grayson specifically. They call him Mr. Smooth. At least some of the drivers in the garage area. He's probably one of the smoothest drivers out there. Make sure he keeps his tires at the best that they can be. Keeps it at right on the edge of where the temperatures would be optimal, but at the same time doesn't completely wear them out by pushing too hard. And that's gotten him some pretty decent wins, especially on the longer 2-mile tracks like Texas World. Maybe not so much Texas World, but at Michigan and Indianapolis, which are two of the tracks that he has definitely dominated at. So Martin Grayson's showing a little bit of what he's capable of pulling off with the two RA Racing cars. However, Gerard Aron and Dave Witt right on their tail. Matthew Axe, however, holding a pretty decent lead over the rest of them. Another veteran driver, maybe not a veteran to the Sportsman Series, but definitely a veteran to the MSCA, is Haruma Kakana, driving for Rogers Racing. The other driver, Nicholas Wade, still kind of mired back in the field a little bit, I believe back towards the midfield. However, Kekana was not the greatest in the last 2 seasons. He was driving for a subpar team, Bonneville Racing, same with Eric Monaco, and both of those drivers have found themselves in a lot better rides after Bonneville ended up shutting down. And Haruma Kekana right now is running a pretty decent race, fighting for, I believe, 5th position with Annalie Whitmer, who was last year's champion and only her 2nd year of competition in the MSCA. However, Kekana was a big name in the truck series, racing for what I believe was Dorellis Motorsports before they got their current lineup. They had the driver who is in the 61 right now, Ernest Crispin, as well as Haruma Kekana in those trucks. They also I believe they did not have Jason Kranz. However, Jason Kranz was running for a different team at the time. And right now, Haruma Kekana calling back to his abilities in the trucks and is really doing a decent job here in the Cup Series for Rogers Racing right now. However, another driver who's really doing a decent job is the first-year driver in this series, at least, Gerardo Ron. Not really would be considered a rookie in this series, however, not considered a rookie due to the fact that he is racing in the Pennzoil Pro Series, so he's not eligible for Rookie of the Year at the moment. Or I don't believe he would be eligible for Rookie of the Year, as he has been in the Pennzoil Pro Series as well as a full-time season in the Copperhead Amateur Series. Dave Witt behind him, both of those cars from the same garage, and as well, this is where Gerardo Ron kind of got his start, or I believe where he is getting his start. He is currently being shared between seats with RA Racing and J. Barker Motorsports. As we can see, the 56 and the 63 are ducking down to pit road. This is lap number 31, so they might be cutting it close. They might be a little bit short, actually, as this is a 67-lap race, so drivers are probably going to be looking for lap 33, or at least most teams are probably looking at lap 33 to come into pit, as the next group will come in. Gerardo Ron will lead them down to the pit lane, and that is going to be your second group of pit stops. That's still not a very big group. I don't believe so, at least. It might be the majority of cars, though, as we can see the rest of the field coming down. All but one driver did come down, and the driver who we didn't see come down is currently the leader right now, Roger Ray. However, he was fairly far back in the field when he is, as I believe he is now coming down into pit this time. So most likely he will not be up at the top of the field. However, Dave Witt able to get out to the front of the field, so possibly that first set of pit stops he did get out in front of Matthew Axe, so that could just be the team giving him a pretty decent stop. However, we did talk about Eric Monaco earlier in the race. However, this is the highest running Malley Motorsports car, Julio Caesar, who is currently running, I believe, in the Copperhead Series for Smart Motorsports. Smart Motorsports is actually in this series with 3 cars, the 22, the 2, and the 12. All of those guys are actually a lot further back than would a lot of teams would probably have thought, considering that team is in the Pennzoil Pro Series, and it is a pretty decent threat for wins. Maybe not championships, but definitely for wins in the Copperhead Series. However, Malley Motorsports, they pulled out for performance reasons of the ASCA. However, they have been able to take what was their CAS equipment and a pretty decent amount of CAS equipment that was doing fairly well, at least whatever they didn't sell to Vincent, and they have put it to very good use here, as we can see the 09 of Julio Caesar holding a pretty decent run here. He is currently sitting in 10th, battling for 9th with Dennis Coetzee. And that is another team that has actually gotten themselves into a much better position than they were last year. That team definitely wasn't in the greatest position. The only driver of that crew of Anderson Craft that actually was doing well was the 72, who unfortunately did not make this race. So Andrea Martinez not making this race. The driver whom many would think that was the best driver of Anderson Craft Racing. However, coming back up to the front of the field, Annalie Whitmer, and you can also see Jacob Ray and Lucas Tran have pulled themselves back up to this front group. but Annalie Whitmer, she was last year's champion and really made a mess of things at Texas World, was involved in a pretty horrific incident which involved the 72 of Andrea Martinez. I believe her and the 02 I believe the 02 of Dawn Johnson. Yeah, that's who was involved in that wreck. The 112 and the 02 were in a major incident at Texas World, and it really took out a lot of good cars, and definitely caused her to make a mess of things as she continued on. Actually, after that incident, was way slower than the rest of the field, and a lot of drivers were not happy. She ended up getting turned post-race, and the MSCA officials didn't really do much about it because they knew exactly what had happened. They did give the driver who did turn her after the race a warning. However, they did mention that she was causing issues on track and most likely should have been black flagged. However, they couldn't do much about it at that point in time because there is no actual minimum speed rule in the MSCA. As long as the car is capable of, well, there is a minimum speed rule, but it's a lot lower than the 112 was actually going. So it was definitely difficult for the teams to argue about it. So that's something that they might look into come next year, especially on those bigger tracks. However, Annalie Whitmer holding her own right now, as she is up in the top 5 right now, could be battling for the 4th or 3rd spot if Martin Grayson and Gerard Aron don't cause enough of a fuss. Meanwhile, Dave Witt and Matthew Axe have been sort of going at it up at the lead, up at the front of the field. Matthew Axe has caught the back end of the 63 of Dave Witt, and it seems like those two are having a little bit of a spat at the moment. The 55 currently sitting well, and he is trying that inside lane on Dave Witt. The inside has been definitely the most prominent at this track, as with most of these tracks. The inside lane usually is the place that you got to pass, and you can see Matthew Axe capable of doing so, taking that lead away from Dave Witt. But Dave Witt most likely not going to be easy to defend against, as those two have been going at it for a long time now, since that first round of pit stops. However, they have been told by the crew chiefs that they might not be able to make it on fuel to the end of the race. And there were concerns as to when they came into pit. They came into pit on lap 31, and since this is a 67-lap race, you have to split the race almost in half. And lap 31 was very close to the halfway point, but probably not close enough to where they could make it on fuel. So they had to have been saving. However, it doesn't seem like they have been, because they've been battling each other so much that they just don't seem to have been trying to save fuel. And it doesn't seem like any other cars, aside from maybe the 33 of Roger Ray and maybe someone who did not pit in those first 2 cycles, but ended up pitting on lap 33, if they saved enough fuel for the end of the race. So that could be interesting to see if someone is able to have enough fuel to make it to the end, as this will most likely become a fuel mileage race for sure. Meanwhile, Dave Witt now coming back into the lead as he gets past Matthew Axe. However, 2 laps later, in turn number 3, he is slowing up a little bit, and Matthew Axe coming up on the high side. Dave Witt will have to come into pit. This is halfway. This is another 31 lap stint for the 63 of Dave Witt. And then you can see a couple laps later, that last lap, the 56 of Matthew Axe as well. I believe Lucas Train came in. Annalie Whitmer and Gerard Aron also coming in now here on lap 64, as we're getting very close to the end of the race. Haruma Kakana, however, not coming in this time at least. So the 23 of Haruma Kakana still staying out. Austin Jakes and Marshawn Anderson as well behind them. 3 Toyotas in the top 3. However, Haruma Kakana, and it looks like Austin Jakes behind him, will also come in. However, this is lap number 65, and we're cutting it close here, as Marshawn Anderson is not pitting, and he will not pit as they come across the line for the white flag lap. as Marshawn Anderson takes the white flag. He looks like he might be able to make it to the end. If he's not going to be able to make it to the end, he'll coast on fumes, but Aaron Reese and Roger Ray especially will most likely have enough fuel to make it to the end. Actually, Aaron Reese, I believe, came in on that third stint. However, Marshawn Anderson wins it on pit strategy, and what a good strategy for that 89 car, taking the victory. And Aaron Reese and Roger Ray also coming across the line, second and third, also getting some decent pit strategy out of that. Dave Witt in fourth. Fifth is Matthew Axe. Sixth is Annalie Whitmer. Seventh is Haruma Kakana. And the last car on the lead lap, they did not get lapped by Marshawn Anderson, will be the 80 of Gerard Aron. Lucas Tran, Jacob Ray, Andrew Gorman, Martin Grayson. 13th, Julio Caesar. 14th, Dennis Coetzee. 15th, Eric Monaco. 16th, Austin Jakes. 17th, Andre Oliveira. 18th, Ricky Dixon. 19th, Mitchell Henderson. And a decent finish, at least, for Nicholas Samudio in 20th. 21st is Sam Verbeek, 22nd Norm Mantiel, 23rd Greg Shivers, which is the third car of that team, 24th Kenny Washington, 25th Nicholas Wade, that's the other Rogers Racing car, 26th Jennifer Power, 27th Sean Ard, 28th James Austin, 29th Jason Haynes, 30th is Sergio Arvin Alonso in that 37 car, 31st Carter Friesen, 32nd Jay Jefferson, 33rd Willis Lewis, 34th Trace Howard, 35th Ernest Crispin, and David Wilson, 36th. Both of those Farfham Racing cars in the back end of the field, with the other one not even being in the race at all. And that win will push Marshawn Anderson up to the point. James Austin in second. Third will be Dave Witt. Fourth is Roger Ray. That's a good finish for him in points as well. Fifth is Ricky Dixon. Sixth, Eric Monaco. Seventh, Haruma Kakana. Eighth, Matthew Axe. Ninth, Austin Jakes, tied with Axe. And then 10th in the point standings will be Lucas Tran. A lot of these guys getting either pushed down a little bit, especially Marshawn Anderson and Roger Ray being pushed up. Mitchell Henderson 11th, 12th Kenny Washington, 13th Norm Mantiel, 14th Andrew Gorman, 15th Julio Caesar, 16th Nicholas Wade. Coming up out of the qualifying race is Annalie Whitmer, so you will be locked in this next week. Martin Grayson in 18th, Aaron Reese also locked in, as well as Gerard Aron in 20th. They will all be locked into this one. So Nicholas Wade, Annalie Whitmer, Aaron Reese, and Gerard Aron, a good finish, gets those drivers above the cut line. Greg Shivers, Nicholas Samudio, Jacob Ray as well moving above the cut line. 24th Sean Ard, 25th David Wilson, 26th Carter Friesen, and that is the rest of the drivers above the cut line. Ernest Crispin, Andre Oliveira, Dennis Coetzee, and Jennifer Power will all have to qualify in the next race, which will be at Circuit of the Americas. And that's going to do it for the rest of your point standings. We'll see you next time at Circuit of the Americas for the MSCA. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.